The most powerful man in the room is not the one who never bends. It's the one who chooses when to. We've built two virtues so far: Jihi, the compass; Yu, the fuel. Together, they produce a man who knows what's right and has the courage to do it. But here is the problem with a man who has only Jihi and Yu. He is correct. He is brave. He acts on his principles. And he can be completely, utterly insufferable. Because principles without warmth become a weapon. Courage without compassion becomes cruelty with better justification. The man who is always right and never gentle is not a virtuous man. He is a righteous one. And righteousness without Jin, without the genuine capacity to be moved by another person, the samurai considered one of the most dangerous things a warrior could become. Jin, the third virtue of Bushido, is the virtue that most people least expect to find here. Not because it is rare in general, but because it is rare in combination with genuine strength. And that combination, Jin expressed through the full power of a person who has Jihi and Yu, is what the samurai called the highest expression of the warrior. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what Jin is, and the specific reason most disciplined, high-performing men actively resist building it. But first, there is a story about Toyotomi Hideyoshi and an act of Jin that historians still debate, because it looks, on the surface, like weakness. And yet, it may have been the most strategically powerful thing he ever did. Oda Nobunaga, the most powerful warlord in Japan, has just been assassinated. His general, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, moves with extraordinary speed, defeats the assassins within weeks, and begins consolidating power. He is brilliant, ruthless, and completely effective. But here is the moment historians find strange. At the height of his power consolidation, when he could have simply eliminated the remaining rival lords, Hideyoshi chose a different approach. He integrated them. He offered terms. He brought former enemies into his administration. He treated defeated lords with a dignity nobody expected. Most modern analysis calls this strategy smart politics, pragmatic consolidation. The samurai who observed this called it Jin. Not naivety, not weakness, not even strategy primarily. They called it the expression of a man who understood that the purpose of power was not to demonstrate itself, but to serve something larger than itself. Hideyoshi could have destroyed. He chose to include, not because it was easy, because he was strong enough to choose not to destroy. That distinction between the man who is merciful because he is weak and the man who is compassionate because he is strong enough to choose it is the entire definition of Jin, and it is the one most people miss completely. The three dimensions of Jin. How the samurai understood and practiced compassion, Dimension 1. Omoiyari, the discipline of perspective. The English word empathy has become associated with feeling, with emotional resonance, with shared suffering. The samurai concept of Omoiyari is something more precise and more demanding. Omoiyari literally translates as thinking toward another. The deliberate cognitive act of placing yourself inside another person's position with accuracy and completeness. Not sympathy, feeling sorry for someone from the safety of your own position. Not emotional contagion, feeling what they feel. Accurate perspective taking, understanding what it is to be that person, in their circumstances, with their history, facing what they face. Most people believe they do this. Research from Nicholas Epley at the University of Chicago consistently shows that people dramatically overestimate their ability to understand what others are thinking and feeling. We believe we know. We rarely do. Here is what Omoiyari requires that most high-performing people resist. Slowing down enough to actually look. Not a quick assessment. Not a projection of what you would feel in their position. A genuine, patient, effortful attempt to understand what is actually true for this specific person. This requires the same quality of attention that a samurai brought to the battlefield. Total, undistracted, present. applied to a human being instead of an opponent. The samurai who mastered Omoiyari were described by their students as people who seemed to know what you needed before you said it, not because they were psychic, because they were paying attention at a level most people never reach. This week, in one conversation per day, practice what the samurai called ma no kiku, listening in the space. Ask one question, then do not speak again until the other person has fully finished. Not finished their sentence. Fully finished. When they pause, wait. Let the silence hold for 3 full seconds before you respond. What arrives in that silence is almost always the actual thing, the thing beneath the thing they were saying. That is Omoiyari beginning. Omoiyari is the perceptual foundation of Jin, the capacity to see another clearly. But seeing clearly is not the same as acting on what you see. The second dimension of Jin is where most people hit the real wall. Dimension 2. Jihi. Jihi is a Buddhist concept the samurai adopted into Bushido. It is composed of 2 characters, Ji, loving kindness, the wish for others to have happiness, Hai, compassion, the wish for others to be free of suffering. Together, Jihi is not a feeling, it is a commitment to act on what Omoiyari revealed. And here is where most disciplined men stop. Because acting on another person's suffering, genuinely acting at real cost, requires something that high-performance culture has systematically trained out of people. Vulnerability, the willingness to be affected, to let what is happening to someone else actually reach you, rather than processing it at a safe analytical distance and moving on. The Hagakure contains a passage that most people who quote it leave out. Tsunetomo observed that the samurai who could not be moved by another's suffering, who processed the world entirely from a position of detachment, was not a warrior of great strength. He was a warrior with a specific weakness, the inability to be fully human in the presence of another human. And the samurai considered this weakness particularly dangerous because it was invisible. It looked like strength, it felt like discipline, but what it actually was the inability to love in the way that costs something. Researcher Brené Brown at the University of Houston, across 12 years of research on human connection, found that the capacity to receive and express genuine compassion was the single most consistent predictor of meaningful relationships, leadership effectiveness, and personal well-being. Not confidence, not competence, not achievement. The capacity to be genuinely moved by another person's experience and to act on it. The samurai called it Jihi. Modern research calls it the foundation of human connection. Same thing. Identify one person in your life who is currently struggling, not with a problem you can solve, but with an experience you can witness. This week, don't offer solutions. Don't fix. Don't advise. Don't share your own similar experience. Simply be present to theirs. Say one sentence. That sounds genuinely hard. I'm here. Then, stay. That is Jihi in practice, and it is harder than it sounds. Omoiyari sees. Jihi acts. But there is a third dimension of Jin that the samurai considered the most sophisticated and the most misunderstood. Dimension 3. Kibo no Jin. Compassion that holds standards. Most people understand compassion as the softening of standards, the gentle lowering of expectations, the acceptance of less in the name of kindness. The samurai had a completely different view. They believed that the highest form of Jin, the Jin of a true warrior, was compassion that held standards, not the compassion that says, "It's okay, you tried," but the compassion that says, "I know what you're capable of, I won't pretend otherwise, and I will stay here with you until you reach it." This is the model of the best samurai masters. The greatest teachers in the warrior tradition were not the ones who were easiest on students. They were the ones who combined the highest standards with the most genuine care for the student's development. Miyamoto Musashi was known to train students past the point of exhaustion, but also to sit with a struggling student for hours, finding the exact correction that would unlock their potential. Not one or the other, both simultaneously. Most people, when they try to be compassionate, drop the standard, and most people, when they hold the standard, drop the compassion. The samurai considered both a failure of Jin. Stanford psychologist Jeffrey Cohen ran a study in 2014 on the most effective form of feedback. He called it the magic feedback. A teacher writes a note on a student's paper. "I'm giving you these comments because I have very high expectations and I know you can reach them." Students who received this feedback, this combination of high standard and genuine belief, showed dramatically higher motivation and improvement than students who received either encouragement alone or critique alone. The samurai called it Kibo no Jin, compassion that holds hope, the belief that the person in front of you is capable of more, combined with the commitment to stay present with them through the difficulty of reaching it. Identify one person in your life, a colleague, a student, a child, a friend, to whom you have been giving either false encouragement or honest critique without warmth. This week, give them both simultaneously. One specific, honest observation about where they are falling short of what they're capable of, followed immediately by, "I'm telling you this because I genuinely believe you can do better, and I'm not going anywhere." That combination, the honest standard held in genuine warmth, is Kibo no Jin, and it is one of the rarest things one human being can offer another. I want to address something directly, because this is the video in this series that I expect the most resistance to. There is a specific type of disciplined, high-performing man who has built genuine Gi and Yu, and who is deeply resistant to Jin. Not because he is cruel, not because he doesn't care about people, but because somewhere in his development, he learned that emotional availability was a vulnerability, that being affected by others was a form of weakness, that compassion, real, costly compassion, was something that others would take advantage of. The samurai would agree with part of this. Naive compassion, compassion without discernment, without Gi and Yu to ground it, can absolutely be exploited. But that is not Jin. Jin is not naive. Jin is what happens when a man who has Gi, the moral compass, and Yu, the courage to act on it, chooses to be compassionate. Not because he has to, not because he is soft, because he is strong enough to afford the cost, and wise enough to understand that without it, all his other virtues serve only himself. The samurai didn't consider Jin a risk. They considered its absence the greatest risk of all, because a warrior without compassion has no answer to the question that every person of genuine power eventually faces. What is all of this for? 3 dimensions of Jin. 1. Daily practice. Morning. Omoiyari. Intention. Before the day begins, name one person you will encounter today. Spend 2 minutes genuinely asking, what is it actually like to be them right now? What are they carrying that I can't see? Not a projection, a genuine attempt. In the moment, Jihi presence. When someone shares difficulty, before you respond, before you advise, before you move to solution, receive it completely. 1 breath. Then, that sounds genuinely hard. Then, stay. Evening, Kibo no Jin review. Where today did I have the opportunity to offer honest hope, to hold a high standard for someone while staying genuinely present with them? Did I take it? If not, why not? Was it discomfort, impatience, the belief that it wasn't my place? The samurai understood something about the 3 virtues we've now covered, Gi, Yu, Jin, that most character development frameworks miss entirely. They are not separate, they are a sequence. Gi gives you the direction. Yu gives you the fuel. Jin gives you the reason. Without Jin, you are a compass and an engine pointed nowhere worth going. With Jin, you are something the samurai considered the rarest thing a warrior could become, a person worth following. Not because of what you can do, because of what you are in the presence of another human being who needs you. Jin, compassion, 3 dimensions. Omoiyari, see another person accurately. Jihi, act on what you see at real cost. Kibo no Jin. Hold the standard and the warmth simultaneously. Daily protocol. Morning, genuine perspective practice. Moment, receive before you respond. Evening, where did I have the chance to offer honest hope? Next week, Ray, respect. And here's what you need to know about this one before we get there. Most people confuse respect with politeness, with surface manners, with the performance of deference. The samurai had a completely different definition. For them, Ray was not about how you greeted someone or bowed correctly. It was about the internal discipline of genuinely valuing the humanity of every person you encounter, regardless of their status, their usefulness to you, or what they've done to deserve it. Ray, as the samurai practiced it, was one of the hardest and most countercultural things in the entire Bushido code. That's next week. Before then, which dimension of Jin do you need most right now? Omoiyari, accurate perspective. Jihi, acting on what you see. Kibo no Jin, honest warmth. Drop the name or the number. And if this series is resonating, share it with someone who's strong, but maybe needs to be reminded that strength and gentleness aren't opposites. Subscribe. Bell on. See you next one.